We got some shocking news to some coming out of Tallahassee. Mike Norvell is safe. Mike Norvell isn't going anywhere. He will be back as Florida State's head coach in 2026. And this isn't really surprising to me because if Florida State was going to fire Mike Norvell this year, it should have happened after they lost to Stanford. That Stanford loss was egregious. You were a double-digit favorite in that game, and you just got outclassed. And obviously, the buyout is the main reason why Mike Norvell is still employed. Because, you had a golden ticket and James Franklin right there for the taking. And you let him go to Virginia Tech. And say what you want about James Franklin struggling against top 5, top 10 teams, underachieving and what was a national championship bust season for Penn State this year. He's one of the best coaches that anybody in college football can have if you're not at a program like Alabama, Oregon, Georgia, the 5 elite teams in college football, the 5 best programs in college football. If you're not at one of these premier schools, having a guy like James Franklin that consistently is going to give you 9 wins or better, a lot of programs will be lucky to have. And Florida State had a guy in James Franklin that based off his track record, he won at Vanderbilt. He would be able to turn around your program, get you back to a level of respectability that you haven't been in years. And when people say that Florida State's playoff snub in 2023 broke the program, you're absolutely right. Because when Florida State got snubbed out of the playoffs, the respect that people used to have for Florida State, the reputation that this football program used to have, that was a sign that it's no longer there. Now, you can argue that playing in one of the worst, if not the worst, Power 4 conference in college football has contributed to that. But a lot of Florida State's downfall and their lack of respect and their reputation has solely been on Mike Norvell. And Mike Norvell, in the 6 seasons that he's been the head coach of Florida State, he's had 4 losing seasons. Now, his first 2 years, I don't really hold against them because those were rebuilding years. But once you got that 10-win season and then you won the ACC championship the year after, your program was supposed to, stabilize at that point. And it completely fell off a cliff ever since. Now, I think that Florida State keeping Mike Norvell is actually the best thing that could happen to this university. Because if Mike Norvell doesn't work out next year, the buyout won't be as big as what it is right now, which will allow you to fire him, then replace him with whoever is one of the top candidates on the market. And if Mike Norvell doesn't work out next year, FSU fans should be happy because then you can go and get Rhett Lashlee from SMU. Rhett Lashlee should be the #1 candidate to replace Mike Norvell if he can't turn around in 2026. Now, as a Miami fan, if FSU gets their hands on Rhett Lashlee, that would absolutely terrify me because Rhett Lashlee has been very successful at SMU. He was the only good thing from the Manny Diaz era at Miami. Manny Diaz got fired while his offensive coordinator got a promotion. And you look at all of the former Miami players that don't work out and they end up washing out after you. Rhett Lashlee brings them in and he develops them. They turn into good players and he gets them to the NFL and he also wins a lot of games with them. And over 2 years, Rhett Lashlee has been to 2 conference championship games, winning one, which was SMU's final year in the American, while also playing in the ACC championship, which he also could be in once again this season, depending on, how things fall and how the pendulum swings this weekend. So he could be coaching in his 3rd consecutive conference championship game at a program that nobody has been talking about since, the heydays of SMU, when they were paying players underneath the table and they got the death penalty. And he's a great recruiter. He's also a very good X's and O's coach. Very rarely do you come across coaches like Rhett Lashlee that have a great blend of being a great technician or tactician, a good schematics guy, but also a very good recruiter. The problem that Mike Norvell has had at Florida State is he dived too deep into the transfer portal, and he put this program that's in a hole that's a little bit too deep for him to climb this program out of. And I was listening to James Franklin's introductory press conference at Virginia Tech, and they were asking him what was his plans for how he planned to build this program. Was he going to solely rely on the transfer portal? Was it going to be built off recruiting? James Franklin said that this season, or his first year at VT, his team will be heavily constructed through the portal because that's the fastest way to overhaul the team. But in the future, he wants to build Virginia Tech up through great recruiting. And when you dive too deep into the transfer portal, it just digs a hole for yourself that's very steep to come out of, because you have to consistently hit on guys in the portal year after year that, with the randomness of college football, there's no guarantee that you're always going to strike gold. And Mike Norvell got lucky in 2023, scratching off a winning lottery ticket when he got Jared Verse, Keon Coleman, Brandon Fisk, guys that are all solid or better players in the NFL. Hell, Jared Verse is one of the best players in the NFL. And Jordan Travis is arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever come through Tallahassee. So for Mike Norvell, this offseason, you can't really rely on recruiting to save your job unless you're banking on your previous few years' recruiting classes, which the majority of Florida State's best players this year were guys that they got out of the transfer portal. So what's Mike Norvell going to have to do this offseason to save his job? Scratch another lottery ticket and hope that he can find another Jared Verse, another Jordan Travis. We know that Mike Norvell is going to get fired. So why is Florida State delaying the inevitable for another year? Because they just don't have the money to buy him out right now. But when they do, they'll end up upgrading with Rhett Lashlee, which I think that Rhett Lashlee will be a much better head coach at Florida State than what James Franklin possibly would be. And even if FSU bought out Mike Norvell, they wouldn't have enough money to hire James Franklin, because you'll have to pay the $60 million to get Mike Norvell gone, plus $10-15 million to buy out his staff, and then you'll have to invest $40-60 million more on a new head coach and a new staff. That's $120 million that you'll be putting out. And you more than likely wouldn't have been able to afford James Franklin, which means that you will have to get a cheap replacement for Mike Norvell. And rather being cheap and getting a guy that wouldn't be the best to pick from out of the coaching carousel, you can wait, see if Mike Norvell can turn around in one more year. And if not, you get Rhett Lashlee, who will be the golden egg of next year's coaching carousel. So I think that Florida State retaining Mike Norvell is actually very great news if you're an FSU fan. Yeah, you would hate to waste another year. You would hate to waste any more time watching an awful product that Mike Norvell continues to put on the field. But hindsight is always 2020. Every FSU fan needs to start blowing up Rhett Lashlee's mentions and welcome him to Tallahassee, because that's who your next head coach should be. At least that's who I expect for you to target, with you having the money to buy him out of SMU and to incentivize him to where you could make him one of the highest paid coaches in college football. FSU is playing chess, not checkers.